I'm ready to make a change.
I want to make more money.
I want to get healthy.
I want to start a business.
I want to spend more time with my family.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stu McLaren, founder of Stew.me, and I want to welcome you to this live broadcast where we're going to be talking about how to set New Year's resolutions that you'll actually stick with. Now, if you're one of those people who have tried setting New Year's resolutions in the past and you've abandoned them after some point, well, you're not alone, my friend. There are many stats pointing to the fact that people drop New Year's resolutions very, very quickly because they just can't stick with them. And during today's broadcast, you're going to find out how to actually change that. Perhaps you're somebody who has tried goal setting before and it just hasn't worked for you for whatever reason. Lack of time, you've got distracted, or just you haven't had a process that actually works. Well, you're going to find a solution here today. Or perhaps you're somebody who is curious about trying goal setting for the first time and you're actually going to get intentional about it this year because you want to make 2015 your best year ever. If that sounds like you, you're in the right place, and I want to welcome you to today's live broadcast. I can't wait to dive into today's material, and what I want to do first is I want to introduce you to our goal-setting expert, Mr. Michael Hyatt. Now, Michael Hyatt, if you don't know, is the, excuse me one second. Michael Hyatt, who will be joining us here, if you don't know him, is the author of the book Platform, Get Noticed in a Noisy World. It is a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestseller. Michael spent most of his career in the world of book publishing, most recently as the chairman and CEO of Thomas Nelson Publishers, which is the 7th largest publisher in the US. When the company was sold to HarperCollins in 2011, Michael left his position to venture out on his own as a full-time blogger, speaker, and leadership coach. His blog today, michaelhyatt.com, gets almost 500,000 unique visitors a month. His podcast, This Is Your Life, co-hosted by Michelle Cachette, is consistently in the iTunes top 10 for business. And recently, Forbes magazine named him one of the top 10 online experts to follow in 2014. In fact, they said if you only have time to follow one expert, Hyatt is our top pick. Michael has been married to his wife Gail for 36 years, and together they have 5 grown daughters. He also has 4 sons-in-law and 8 grandchildren. So with that, I want to welcome Mr. Michael Hyatt. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we are live.
Yep.
And we're going to be talking about how to set New Year's resolutions that you'll actually stick with. Why is this so important to you?
You know, it's so important to me because this is a mechanism by which you can realize your potential. You know, I think so many people die without realizing their potential, or they live the same year over and over again, just repeating it endlessly and never really growing. But this is a time of year when we can really look forward to the future and begin to create something completely different. And that just flat out gets me excited.
Well, I'm excited too because you have definitely developed a process for yourself for achieving goals. Yep. And I want to dig into your story a little bit throughout today's presentation. But also, we're here to answer questions for people.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun.
And so this is going to be all about helping people achieve their goals and to make 2015 their best year ever. So I'm excited about that. What else can people expect to get from today's broadcast?
Well, I think they can get motivated. You know, I think this is a time to really consider the possibility. It's so early in the year. I mean, it's barely begun. And like a big white canvas in front of us, you know, we have the opportunity to create and to paint and to create really the best year we've ever experienced in life. And so I think people are going to get the technology in this seminar. They're going to get some how-tos. They're going to get some strategies, some practical help, a little bit of the science behind goal setting, and the kind of equipping that they're going to need to really create this as their next or the best year ever.
Well, I'm excited, and I want to let everybody else know too, we also have a variety of giveaways that we have for you during today's broadcast. So stay tuned because we're going to be sending those to you as well. Plus, we have a contest. And here's how the contest is going to work. We want you to answer the question, what would it mean for you if 2015 could be your best year ever? So answer that question by leaving a comment below in the comment box. And do that before our break, which we're going to be having during today's broadcast. If you leave a comment there, you'll be entered into the contest. And we're going to be picking a winner. And the winner will be receiving a free subscription to Michael's brand new 5 Days to Your Best Year Ever VIP edition. So you'll be receiving the VIP edition of Michael's course. I'm excited about that.
I am too. Fantastic.
So, Michael, this is all about answering the questions for people, and I want to remind everybody too, if you've got questions, enter them in the comment section you see below. Our team behind the scenes is going to be getting those questions. They're going to be sending them to me here, so I'll be able to ask you them directly.
Terrific.
So, okay, Michael, one of the things that I want to talk about first, though, is this process really became important to you because you were in a phenomenal position, CEO of one of the largest publishing companies in the world, success in all areas, and yet there was something inside of you that said you needed to do something different. Can you talk to us about that friction that you felt and what you needed to do to move forward in that?
Yeah, it's funny because it happened really before I became the CEO. I had this incredible year back in the year 2000 where my division, the division I was running at Thomas Nelson, we had 21 at the time, the division I was running was dead last in every single metric. So we had the worst growth, the worst return on investment or assets. I mean, it was just ugly. And so we were able in about 18 months to take that from number 21 to number 1.
Wow.
And it was really a team effort. But then I got scared. I thought, oh my gosh, I just had the best year I've ever had. How am I going to possibly top this? And I said, I don't want to be this young and have already lived my best year ever.
Right.
I want to continue to create my best year ever every year. And so I did. I got very intentional about the process. I said, how can I set goals that are meaningful? How can I create something that's not just a career best year ever, but what would it look like if I could experience the best year ever in terms of my health, in terms of my family life, in terms of my friendships, and all the categories of life that matter to me. So that was kind of the genesis of it.
Because most of us, we just get into a rhythm, right?
We do.
And we just get into a rhythm and a routine. And although there are things that we want, we aren't necessarily intentional, as you said, about designing our best year ever. And what you've done is you've made this a process that you go through every year to make sure that this upcoming 12 months is going to be the best that you've ever had.
That's right, because the only two alternatives really for people is they're either going to drift through life, reliving the same year over and over again, maybe, marginal improvements, some incremental improvements, but not substantially different than the previous year. Or they're going to live a designed life where they start out with an intention and they decide that they're going to create and make it something different than they've ever experienced before.
Well, I'm excited to dive into it, and I want to certainly get to questions that you may have as part of the audience. Again, all you need to do is just enter them below, and we'll be serving Michael those questions. Before I do, though, I know that you have secrets to this whole process, and I was wondering if you could share those in terms of what are the secrets if those in our audience really do want to have their best year ever.
Yeah, and I would frame it this way, Stu. I would say these are the secrets for setting yourself up for your best year ever. This is like the prerequisite, kind of the foundational ground floor, if you will, that you've got to have set up if you're going to be successful. And it begins really with stating the intention. Just deciding I'm done with having the same year over and over again. I'm going to have something qualitatively substantially different than I've ever experienced before. And so getting very clear about that intention. And we got to be careful at this point because there's this thing that creeps up in our hearts if we're not careful called cynicism. And maybe we've been burned in the past, or we tried and failed, or it didn't turn out quite like we hoped. And it's real easy if we're not careful to say, the goal setting thing doesn't work, or I really am a victim and I can't really impact the future. But none of that is true. But it starts with an intention to just say, this is going to be different. The status quo is no longer good enough. I want something different this next year. Again, whether it's in terms of your physical health, your most important relationships, your career, a business you want to start, a book you want to write, it could be anything. But it starts with the intention. That's number one.
And it's interesting, too, because I think sometimes people get to that intention after they've gotten to the point of hurt or pain or something like that. But you're saying, hey, listen, you don't have to go there.
Absolutely.
You can be more intentional up front and make it something that sets yourself up to have your best year ever.
The funny thing about that is a lot of people only change when they go through a big, crash of some sort. Maybe they have a heart attack or they have some tremendous loss. And I say, why wait for that?
Right.
Why not just go ahead and change now? and experience the joy and the satisfaction of living your best year ever. Because all of that really happens in the pursuit of your best year ever. The destination is not as important as the journey. Which brings me to the second
I was going to say, so that's number one, is set your intention.
Yep.
What's number two?
Number two is set aside a time and a place to do this. This is the best time of year to do this. In fact, this weekend would be the best time before you enter this new year to have a clear plan, to know what you want to accomplish, and to be clear about that, but you've got to set aside a time and a place. Most of us live in a very distracting environment. We work in distracting environments. Things are constantly grabbing for our attention, and it's very difficult to focus.
I learned that big time having a small child.
Yeah, oh my gosh, absolutely. But you and your wife, Amy, did something very cool last night. You guys got a hotel room, and you decided we're going to create our best year ever, completely free of the distractions.
Yeah.
You got a babysitter for Marla.
Yeah, we learned this from you last year. We went through your 5 days through Best Year Ever course, and we decided that we would go to a hotel room where it was just her and I, and just basically immerse ourselves in designing our year. And it was such a huge success. We had such a great time that we're like, this is a new tradition. So every January 1st, that's what we did. We did it last night. Went to the hotel room, and we spent 5 to 6 hours, and that's all we did, was just design our new year. So we set a date, and we set a time.
The cool thing about that, too, is I'm sure you had some amazing conversations.
Well, it was interesting because, when you're going through the goal-setting process with a loved one, you see where you're aligned, and you also see where you're not aligned.
Yeah, you do.
But it also, what I loved about it as a husband is it gave me an opportunity to see where I could best support Amy in helping her craft her best year ever.
That's really good.
And likewise.
But the key is to get away. And it doesn't have to be a hotel. People may not be able to afford that. I mean, I've done it before in a public library. Just get someplace where there's not the incessant pinging of the computer or the ringing of the telephone, but just to set aside the time. My experience is that what gets calendared, what gets put on your calendar, is what gets done.
Right.
And if you don't set aside the time, and if you don't set aside a place, this is probably not going to happen. But this is your chance for a very small investment of time and effort to create next year and make it very different from any year you've ever experienced.
And I think that's the big takeaway for people with that point, is that when you are intentional and when you take the time to actually think about how to craft your best year ever, that's time that you're investing in your life. I mean, most of us, as you said, are so busy. We have things that are happening all the time. Yep. We just don't have the space and the time to just sit down and dedicate to ourselves and just think. And that's what I love about this.
Yeah, the people that live qualitatively different lives are people that think deeply about their lives. And so to take that time and give yourself the opportunity to think like that is critical.
Okay, so that's number one and number two. And number two was set the date and time. What's number three? Number
three is give yourself permission to dream. This is tough because, when you're a kid, you're free to dream, and kids say, you ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they might say an astronaut or a ballerina or an artist, or they have all these ideas. And then suddenly as we move through life, we begin shutting those same kids down. Look, you got to get realistic. You got to be able to get a job when you get out of college, and you got to be able to go to work. So those dreams die 1,000 deaths. And what we've got to do in this process is reawaken kind of that childlike wonder and give ourselves permission to dream. And ask ourselves, for example, what would it be like if I could be in the best shape of my life? What would my weight be like? How much energy would I have? What would I be eating? What would it look like to be in a relationship that was just over the top, where I felt like I was known and understood, and somebody that was a true partner with me? What would that feel like? Or in your career, to feel like you're really making significant progress, that you're moving up the corporate ladder if you're in a corporate job, or if you started a business and you're an entrepreneur, to really get that first sale or hit that first six-figure income or whatever it is. But to just give yourself permission to dream. That's where it starts. We've got to recover the lost art of dreaming.
And I think today, more than ever, this is such an opportunity for all of us, because we live in a world today where we have so many opportunities available that were never available to us before. It really does create an environment to really dream.
Well, and the thing I would say about that is it might have been kind of I don't know, it's a dream of vanity in the past, because you could really never make it operational, But today, with the internet, with technology, with all the stuff that's happened really in the last 100 years, today you really can create the world of your dreams.
For example, let's be honest, you were geeking out before we went live here with all the technology. You're pretty excited about all this. But that just makes it possible. We're reaching thousands of people here, and that's exciting.
Yeah, and it began as somebody's dream.
Right.
And so to ask ourselves that question, what would it be like if I could really have what I want? Sort of my ideal vision in every major category of my life. Maybe today you don't have the friendships. I was talking to a man the other day who just said, I've got to give some attention to friendships. I don't really have any friends outside of work. And I said, you know what? You got to dream about that. What would it look like if you had 3 or 4 or 5 best friends, people that you could hang out with, people that were there when you needed them, that would support your most important goals? All begins with dreaming.
Very cool. Okay, so number 1 is set your intention. Number 2 is choose a time and a place. Number 3 is give yourself permission to dream. What's number 4?
You got to identify what's at stake. This is maybe a little bit sobering, but to realize there's a lot at stake. That if you don't achieve those dreams, and my own worldview is that God puts those things in our heart, those dreams. We may spend a lot of time medicating, suppressing, ignoring, procrastinating, acting like they're not there. But there's a stewardship that comes with those dreams. And if we don't really achieve those dreams, if we don't set out to accomplish what has been put in our heart, people are going to suffer. I mean, we're going to suffer somewhat because we're not going to realize that and experience the joy of achievement, the joy of helping people, serving people, adding value to other people. But guess what? Those people suffer as well. When we're not in our best health, yeah, we suffer. But the people around us suffer. I've seen that in my family, as people have not taken care of themselves, and the repercussions, the ripple effect that goes down to the children and the grandchildren beyond that.
Right.
Or in your relationships. When we don't tend to those relationships and nurture them and build them, there's a ripple effect that happens also, not just to our children and grandchildren, but even in our communities. Or in our career, when we don't realize our potential. All the people that are not reached, all the people that are not helped, all the people that are not served. And so I think we've got to identify at what's at stake, and not just negatively, but also positively.
Right.
What would happen not only in my marriage, but to my children and to 50 generations later, if I really love my spouse well,
right.
If I really build that relationship. And so I just think to identify what's at stake is really important.
What's interesting hearing you say that, I was reminded when my wife and I had our daughter, Marla. We realized at that very moment that we needed to change our eating habits because we were eating very poorly, and we almost disregarded it for our own health, but what was at stake was Marla's health, and that transformed the way we thought about food and the way we thought about eating, and because that's what was at stake was Marla's health, which, right or wrong, had a higher priority for us at that time than our own health. And so it goes to speak to what you're saying.
Well, I talk to people all the time because of our work, our mutual work at Platform University, people that want to build a platform and they want to have greater influence. But the key to greater influence is self-leadership. And this is true in your family, it's true in the larger community, it's true in the public. That in order to lead anyone else, you've got to lead yourself. And that's why I love this idea of creating your best year ever, because you get to model what it looks like to take care of yourself, an appropriate level of self-care, and to begin to grow and expand. And by the way, that's one of the keys to growing a business. If you as an entrepreneur or even a business leader in a corporation, if you're not continuing to grow, your business is going to stagnate. That's why it's imperative that we continue to expand, that we conquer new frontiers, that we keep pushing ourselves for more, not for the sake of acquiring more, but for the sake of becoming more of who we were meant to be.
Well, I'm so excited about this, and I can see now we've got lots of questions coming through, so I want to certainly get to this. So thank you to everybody who is asking questions. We're going to be getting to those here in just a minute. Again, I want to remind you, if you're just joining us, you can ask questions by entering them in the comment section below. We also have some giveaways that we'll be getting to here in just a minute, so stay tuned for that as well. So with that, Michael, you ready to dive into the questions? I just want to recap
Let's do.
The 4 secrets for a breakthrough year for everybody. Number 1 was set your intention. Number 2, choose a time and place. Number 3, give yourself permission to dream. And number 4, identify what's at stake. So for all you note takers at home, those are the 4 secrets. Let's dive into the questions because we got a lot coming in.
Good.
Okay, so the first one I want to ask is from Aaron. And Aaron said, This may be something that you cover in your course, and I just haven't gotten that far yet, but what is your process for reviewing your goals once you have established them so that you remain on track or you refine your goals if needed? And at what frequency do you perform this assessment throughout the year?
Yeah, it's a great question. I basically have 3 cycles. So first of all is a daily review, and it's very fast. I mean, literally it probably takes 2 minutes, but I'm just looking at a high-level view of those goals because I don't want them to fall off my radar. The number one reason people don't accomplish their goals is because they lose visibility of their goals. They prepare them, they stick them in a desk drawer, they put them up on a shelf, they never look at them again, and because of that, they don't accomplish them. So I do a daily review. Then in addition to that, I do a weekly review. So we've kind of built in something this year that's going to be fun because my daughter Megan and I, who works with me in the business, we usually have lunch together on Mondays. We're going to be reviewing our goals together when we do that.
Oh, interesting. So you're making it part of your weekly meeting.
Yeah, part of our weekly meeting. Then in addition to that, because again, I'm trying to create more visibility for the goal, I do a weekly review on Sunday night where I look back over the past week and see if there are any things that I need to complete, loops I need to complete. Then I look forward to the week ahead, but I'm also I review my goals during that period too, a little bit deeper dive. What are the next actions, for example, that I need to take to move the ball a little further down the field?
Okay.
And then once a quarter, I do a deeper quarterly review where I'm looking at my goals and I'm asking myself the question, do these goals need to be tweaked? How am I progressing? You know, it's kind of a visit to the honest planet. How are we doing?
So once a day, you just take a quick glance, almost to remind yourself of what the goals are. Once a week, you are reviewing them to decide on what your next actions should be toward each goal. And then once a quarter, you are doing a deeper dive saying, okay, what goals do I need to adjust? What am I removing, and adding and so forth.
How's my progress overall? And again, I just want to emphasize this does not take a lot of time.
Right.
What it takes is consistent time. So literally a couple of minutes a day, maybe 10 or 15 minutes on the weekend.
Yep.
And then the quarterly review, I do a process there as well, but it's probably maybe an hour once a quarter.
Okay, awesome. Well, Aaron, thank you for the question.
Great question.
All right, another question here from Elizabeth. And Elizabeth asks, how do you determine if what you have stated as a goal is really a large task within what should really be the goal? Beginning to think that I'm thinking small, and specifically, I've set a goal to write 2 blog entries and recruit 2 guest posts each month for an academic blog that I'm going to manage for a year. The reason I want to do this is to develop an online contemplative living community, which seems too big for me. But writing 2 blog posts each month seems like a task rather than a goal. What are your thoughts? Task versus goals?
Yeah, well, first of all, this is art, not science. And I think sometimes you just have to try these things on and then adjust as you go through them. I actually like that goal because I think that other goal of building the community and everything could be really squishy. You could define it in another way. You could define it as traffic or whatever. But this is more what I would call a habit goal. And I can tell you, as somebody who has been pretty successful in blogging, that habit of blogging consistently will move the needle in all kinds of other ways. So I like it. I don't think it's thinking too small.
I want to ask you about this, like the habits versus goals, because as we were going through our process last night, this was one of the things that came up for me. It was almost like it felt like 2 different categories.
Yeah.
Like habit goals and then like goals of accomplishment. How do you make a distinction, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't really make a distinction, but I track them differently.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so like there's a milestone goal and then there's a habit goal. And when it's a habit goal, like for example, you and I were talking about this before we got on today about working out with our trainers 3 days a week. So that's a habit, being in the gym 3 days a week, working out with the trainer. You can track that with a lot of different applications. There's habit tracking applications. Look on the App Store, or what's the Android store called?
I don't even know.
Oh, I can't believe I don't know that. Anyway, Google Play.
Okay.
So they're out there, trust me. But that gives you an opportunity to articulate in the goal when you're going to start that habit, but then to track your progress so that you stay consistent and build momentum. So that's a habit goal. So different ways of tracking, but they both belong on your goal list.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's good to have both
It is.
Habit goals and the other goals. Okay, great.
I wouldn't take on too many habits at one time, though. Just
as an
speaking
FYI.
from experience.
Okay, no, that's good to know. Oh, well, let me ask you about that. Why do you say that, and what do you recommend?
Well, the conventional wisdom is that it takes 21 days to build a new habit. But that's actually not true.
Okay.
Because what the science says, and I can't quote the source here, but we did the research earlier this year, the science says that it takes actually 66 days to build a new habit. And it also takes a lot of focus. And so if you're trying to do too many habits, if you're trying to make too many changes to your lifestyle at one time, it's like the old Chinese proverb, man who chases two rabbits catches neither.
Right.
If you're trying to attempt too much change at one time, you're probably going to lose focus and end up not doing anything.
Well, and going back to the conversation we had this morning, I was sharing with you, one of the things that made a big difference for me with a habit change goal was having an accountability partner.
Yes.
And that for me was a trainer who is there waiting for me, 3 times a week. And it's funny because over the Christmas holiday break, when he went back home to see his family, he wasn't there, my habit seemed to take a nosedive.
Yeah, see?
So that accountability is important.
But you knew that, and so you built in a safeguard around that, which is great.
Yeah. Okay, so now we talked about reviewing your goals and it not taking much time. There's another question coming in here from David about time management with it. He said, "Hi, Michael. My time and energy are quite diversified between more than one job. Leadership at church, my own personal musical goals, family, etc. I'm sure you can relate." He said, "How does one manage diverse tasks within diverse goals on a weekly basis? Thanks."
Well, one of the questions, kind of behind the question, is how many goals should you have at any one time? And I'm for limiting these too. I've had people that used to report to me in the past that would come in with like 30 or 40 goals, and they're kind of beating their chests like, I'm going to really make a huge difference this next year. And I said, no, you're going to probably lose focus and not accomplish anything. So I really believe the right number, based on my research, is between 7 and 10 goals. But they need to be spread out across the various categories of your life. So they can't be all career-related goals. They can't be all, personal goals, but they need to be spread around, the whole circumference of your life. And then I just set a couple tasks for each one of those every week. Some of them are going to be near-term goals. The deadline is coming up faster, so they're going to have more of a focus now, whereas some later in the year will have more of a focus later in the year. But I like just identifying the next task and getting on with it, and don't get it too complicated.
So you're saying 7 to 10 total goals, not 7 to 10 per category, 7 to 10 total.
That's right.
Okay.
And 7 to 10 at any one time.
Okay.
So let's say you knock out 3 of them here in this first month of January because you're a real go-getter.
Yeah.
Great. Now you've earned the right to add another 3.
Gotcha.
Okay. But no more than 7 to 10 at any one time.
So you can only earn the right to add more once you've knocked some of them
That's
out.
right.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. So going back to David then, how do you manage that time? If you've got goals in different areas of your life, for example, how do you manage to dedicate time to each so that you make sure you're making progress?
Well, there's a couple ways I do that. I do as a matter of just my daily review. I'm planning out the day. I've got a to-do list. I use a software product called Noseby, but any of them will work, just a task management system that allows me to identify the key tasks. I really want to be focused on the important, not just the urgent. And the important things for me, the important tasks are the ones that are moving me closer to my goals. Not just the things where I'm reacting to somebody else's agenda or somebody else's do list. Can
you give us some examples of important versus urgent?
Yeah, so like when somebody sends that urgent email and says they need something and they need it now. Or somebody, in my case, they might want me to write an endorsement for their book. And the deadline is this Friday. It's got to be in. Versus me creating the outline for the next book I'm going to write, which to me is really important. Right. It's just not urgent because that book will sit there forever. Because it's not going to be demanding and it's not going to feel urgent. So again, that's on the goal list. Writing this new book this next year, that's on the goal list. That's important by definition. But then the other thing I do too is the really important stuff I put on the calendar. I've talked about this before, but whether that's a date night with my wife, or time with my grandkids, or time just for think time to work on my business. Whatever it is, again, what gets on your calendar is what gets done. And scheduling your priorities is a key component of success.
I want to ask you a follow-up to that because you are so good at calendaring and scheduling things. And I found it interesting when I learned that you block off time to think. Like it's not, the calendar's not wide open. There's a scheduled time for you to think. How do you prevent that from getting monopolized? Because it's easy to, chew into that time block, if you will. But how do you handle that?
It is. Well, I think if you're going to really get momentum toward your goals, you've got to get really good at saying no. And that's hard for people. And I admit, it's really hard for me. I'm a recovering people pleaser. So when people put in a request, they ask me to do something, it's really hard for me to say no to them. But the way I frame it up in my own mind is I'm not saying no to them, I'm saying yes to something greater, something that I've already made a previous commitment to. The thing I love about putting commitments on my calendar is that I can legitimately say to you when you ask me to do something last minute, I can say, Stu, I wish I could help you, but I've already got a commitment. Now, sometimes we feel like we got to explain ourselves. It's not necessary. You know, like, well, I kind of had this time set aside to work on my book, but I suppose that can wait. No, just I have a commitment. They don't need to know any more than that.
Right.
But you need to honor your commitment to yourself, honor your own word, and keep that commitment. People that can do that are the people that succeed. In fact, I got this great quote from Warren Buffett where he said, the really great people, the people that really accomplish a lot in life, they say no to almost everything. But I would just add to that, they say yes to the really important things. So this is not about being a negative person or being a no person, but it's about really focusing on those things that are the true yes, you know, the 9 or the 10 on the scale that are really the yes for you.
And getting clarity around what those things are. I think that's
right.
an important piece for everybody. Cool. All right, so I have, man, the questions are coming in. So first of all, thank you for sending in all the questions. We are going to try to get through as many as we can. In about 5 minutes, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to share something with you, which I think you're going to find very, very special. So hang tight for that. But I do want to get to a couple more questions here. Next one, this one is from John. And John asked, how do you set goals when you are in a time of uncertainty and a potential transition? Specifically, I am in the oil business, and with the recent drastic drop in prices, it is hard to set quantifiable goals when our income is so uncertain and what we need to do might need to change. So he's in an unstable environment. Things are changing all the time. How does he set goals with something like that?
Yeah, this is tough because oftentimes uncertainty breeds fear, and fear breeds paralysis. And so one of the best ways, I think, is to switch the whole conversation in your head. So instead of seeing that and being confused and feeling fearful and getting paralyzed, to say, what does this situation make possible? To just spin it on its head.
That's a great question.
You know, I don't think things happen just by accident.
Right.
You know, and so those could be an enormous opportunity. You know, every time you experience that kind of uncertainty, it usually does mean that something's shifting. And I happen to believe, and I think I might have gotten this from Tony Robbins or somebody, but the idea is that pretend that the entire world is, or the entire universe is conspiring in your favor. You know, think about that.
Yeah.
Why not? Why do we all have to go to the negative? But to think that, you know, if there's a shift that's happening in the oil industry, there might be something really good that comes out of that. I can definitely point back to times of uncertainty and fear in my life where I thought the world was caving in and, you know, the bottom was dropping out. Oh my gosh, those became sort of the birth pangs that gave birth to enormously creative times in my life, times of where I was able to become something I hadn't been before, times to grow.
Like a good example would be when you were CEO of Thomas Nelson and social media was really starting to blossom, and it was challenging for you as the leader of a huge publishing company.
Well, it was. In fact, in the publishing industry, we had several, I called them tsunamis, happen at the same time. We had the digital publishing revolution, so we had Kindle and all those kinds of things happening. We had social media happening, and we had the economic recession.
Right.
And so I said to my team, you know, with this kind of uncertainty, the only way we're going to survive is if we're going to lean into this.
Right.
And I remember reading this story of, I think that it was in New Zealand or maybe Australia, but there was a guy who rode a tsunami. And so, you know, instead of just being overwhelmed by that, you know, he just got a surfboard and started going with it and embraced it. So I think there's times in our life when we just have to reverse the question and say, okay, what does this make possible? You know, maybe, who was this that asked the question?
John.
So
John
maybe
asked.
for John, you know, it's a case of that thing he's had in his heart that he's always wanted to do that maybe he was a little afraid to pursue, that now he can begin to think about that a little bit. You know, maybe this is an opportunity for him to do something different, and there's going to be the space to do that. Maybe not. Or how could he add value to the people right around him and encourage them in the midst of this uncertainty?
Very cool. All right, well, let's get to another goal here. This one is about having monthly goals. What do you think of having monthly goals instead of yearly goals? If, for example, I want to improve a character trait, how would I make that into a goal? Wouldn't it be better to focus on that one trait for 1 month? So it's kind of similar to what we discussed about habits, but what are your thoughts there?
Well, first of all, I think certainly you can do that if you want. I just like keeping it simple. You know, I don't like overthinking it, and I think sometimes we can get all jacked up about planning, and it becomes procrastination. We bring in an out. We get this big old slips, people who called and left voicemail messages and all the inboxes of our email filled up. And we said, forget the plan. That goes on the shelf, and we never looked at it again.
Right.
So we don't want to do that. So I think just identifying the next action is the most important thing. If you've got a character quality that you're trying to build, and I don't know what the example would be here, but what I would do is say, what's one thing I can move myself toward this month is fine. Maybe it's reading a book, maybe it's having a conversation, maybe it's creating a focus group with some people that seem to be better at this than I am. But there's a lot of things that you could do, and if a monthly focus helps you, great. Do what works.
Yeah, I think a good example that I can relate, because my wife and I set one of those last night. So we want to be intentional about staying in touch with our friends on a more regular basis. And we really grouped them into two groups of friends: local friends and friends that live out of town that we would have to travel. And so what does it mean to stay in touch with local friends, and what does it mean to stay in touch with friends that live out of town? And I think that helped, because that gave us, we asked a similar question, like what is the action that is tied to that? And for us, that is seeing our local friends in person once a month. And for the friends that live out of town, that means connecting with them some way, whether it be through Skype, whether it be through just a simple text, a phone call, something like that, just to stay connected.
Yeah, but you kept it simple.
Right.
My brother-in-law was talking about having a goal of wanting to build more friendships, and I can't remember how he had the goal framed up at first, but it was kind of general and it wasn't specific. And so as we were talking and I was coaching him, I said, what if you just set aside one day a week that you're going to have a lunch with a different friend on a rotating basis? He had 4 people that he wanted to really cultivate these relationships. And I said you could go through those 4 friends once a month. And it's something that's incremental. It's something definitely doable. It's realistic. And so he liked that idea. And I think that's the kind of thing that he'll look back a year from now and say, oh my gosh, I had all these meetings with all these people on a regular basis and have really built new kinds of relationships.
So I think coming back to the character trait, it would be find something that is connected to that trait that is measurable.
Yes,
so
true.
In our case, it would be if we haven't contacted these people once a month, then we know whether we're failing or whether we're passing on that. With your brother-in-law, it's has he set those dates to meet with those people once a month, and that's the measuring stick.
Yeah, and in both of these cases, those things could be put right on your calendar.
Right.
So you don't have to think about it anymore. It just shows up, and you got to make that phone call or whatever it is.
Perfect. Well, I want to ask one more question, and then I want to share with the audience something special that we've got for them. But the next question that I want to ask here is from Brian. And Brian said, have never been able to stick with resolutions or goal setting. What do I do when I complete the 5 days to your best year ever? I just finished day 2. Will all become clear after day 5? Yes.
It will, but I will say this, that what you've done, Stu, and what I do as a matter of course, is build in the accountability component. There's some things that you can do to basically hack the system so that you don't just have this New Year's resolution that goes away. And that's really not what we're talking about here. We're talking about goal setting, and goal setting done well has baked into it almost its own fulfillment. In other words, if you do the goals like the way I teach in the 5 days course, then you've got a much higher probability of actually achieving them. But accountability is one way. Keeping the goals visible is another way. Regular review, tracking your progress, and starting out with the right kind of goal. One that really excites you, you find personally compelling is important too.
And I think too, because one of the things that wasn't discouraging for me, but I found really difficult, was you said the number 7 to 10 goals. And I remember even this last night, I
heard from your wife about
mapped out the goals, and I had close to 30 goals, and I was like, man, he's telling me 7 to 10. But I have a sense of relief in the sense that, okay, start with 7 to 10, but that doesn't mean that's it for the year. Like if you're an achiever or goal getter and you knock those off, then you can start adding the other ones in, but that just provides focus.
Focus, that's the key word. You're trying to create focus.
And I think that hopefully that helped address Paul's question earlier, because he asked about the number of goals to set. All right, so with that, what we want to do is we want to share something very special with you. And after this, we're also going to have a giveaway for you when you come back. We've got lots more content to cover. We're going to be asking Michael specifically about, we've talked a lot about character traits and characteristics. We're going to be talking about that. the 5 characteristics that high achievers have that help them get what they want. You're going to find out exactly what those are in just a minute. And what we're going to do now is we're going to share with you a very special presentation from 2 people who made 2014 their best year ever as a source of inspiration for you to make this year your best year ever.
I'm ready to make a change.
I want to make more money.
I want to get healthy.
I want to start a business.
I want to spend more time with my family.
My name is Mick Kaufman. I live in Mansfield, Texas. I'm very blessed with a beautiful wife. Her name is Tracy. And I have 2 great kids, Jacob, who is 5, and Quinn, who is 2. I've tried goal setting in the past. Some of the challenges I've faced in the past, though, are just the daily rigors of life. A lot of times it just takes away from the goal. And my issue in the past is without the why, it's just caused me to abandon or feel like if I'm not making the progress I need, I've abandoned the goal or have not reached the results that I needed. The biggest goal I have this year is 500 miles at the bike and walking trails. I try 3 times a week to go to a bike trail near my house. The biggest challenge and sometimes obstacle that comes with that is I am in a manual wheelchair. The reason that I wanted to take the 5 days to the best year ever is I was introduced to Michael Hyatt's personal life plan, and that really helped me to find the different areas in my life to where goals could help me to reach the results that I needed. So then I started watching the 5 days to the best year ever videos of Michael Hyatt. Just everything that he talked about, the balance that it gives you in life. You know, last year was last year. We can move on and have the results we need in the following year. That really spoke to me. So there are a lot of factors that sometimes affect getting those miles done on a daily basis. Factors such as weather that have had me off of my initial goal. But what I found is with the program of the best year ever, having it written down, having those goals in front of me and then breaking it down into quarters and months, is I can look at the why, reminds me again why I set this goal and why I need to attain this goal. But then I can also look at changes I can make throughout the year. A lot of the exercises that I went through during those 5 days, not only looking at areas that I needed to work on or that I didn't feel I was successful the year before. I think that's something that in the past when we look at that, we dwell on the negatives. But one thing that really helped me was the positives. Just the things that I felt made me feel successful or that I felt like I really improved on, and that I saw that I had momentum to move into the next year. When it comes to Michael Hyatt's program, The Best Year Ever, just to be able to take part in that, it's made a huge difference in my life, not only personally, but just within my family and the team around me. The accountability has been huge. Also, other people who have taken the course, who have taken part in those 5 days. There's a forum where you can see that there are others who are still fighting along to hit their goals. Sometimes you just want to give up, but you got to stick with those, and you got to keep reviewing them and looking at them and looking at the why, because it keeps encouraging you, but it also, it gives you that kick in the pants sometimes that you need. The entire program made a huge difference in my life. I would recommend it to anybody around me, and definitely want to see others around me take part in it. When it came to my goals for the year, it ended well. My biggest goal was 500 miles at the bike trail. I fell a little bit short. I've ended up at about 304. I'm on track to finish at 350 instead of 500. I had some shoulder problems in September that slowed me down through September and October, but I was able to start back in 1st of November and continue to stick with the program and just to revise the goal, but also to push forward to finishing strong. So I will be finishing at 350 miles, but it's really benefited not only me. I've been able to lose weight, I've been able to feel more energy, more energetic, achieve more at work, but it's also benefited my family as well. My wife and kids have been able to go to the trails with me. My wife has also set a goal for herself for this year and has lost 70 pounds.
and is much healthier than she's been in years. Also, my kids, it's just been able to allow us to have time in a healthy way together, to be at the bike trail, at the park. So it's not only impacted us physically, but it's also impacted just our relationship as well. Going through Michael Hyatt's Best Year Ever course, it's night and day compared to where I was with goal setting before. In the Best Year Ever course, just being able to sit down in December of last year and listing through, one, what are my intentions, but also what are my reasons for setting these goals. And that's one thing I love about the Best Year Ever course is you really stick to that SMART formula. Is it specific? Is it measurable? I was able to, on note cards, carry around the goal, the reason for the goal, why is it important to me, and then just to be able to continue to focus on that throughout the year, to review it, to make changes if I needed to. In June, he had a webinar in the messy middle that also just helped me to refocus. If I was feeling down on some of the goals, I was able to revisit that, or to motivate myself to push through to finish. So the Best Year Ever course is a year-long tool that can be used to stay on course and to achieve those goals and to remember why they're important to you, and that helps with motivation.
I'm ready to make a change.
I want to make more money.
I want to get healthy.
I want to start a business.
I want to spend more time with my family.
I'm ready to make a change.
I want to make more money.
I want to get healthy.
I want to start a business.
I want to spend more time with my family.
I'm Christy Largent. I live in Redding, California, the northern part of our state. I am married. I've got 2 kids. I have a 7-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter, and we grew our family through adoption. I'm a professional speaker, and I'm also a podcaster and a blogger. And I have to say, my life before children was really, really different. And then 2003, we decided to adopt, my husband and I. And so we went to China in December of '04 and came back with my daughter. And that changed everything. I decided to stay home. And then in '08, we went back to China and came back with my son Graham. And so that really even changed it further to the point of where I was pretty much being full-time mom. This past summer, I decided that I needed to get back to speaking. My kids were both in school, and I really felt that it was just a calling, that I needed to be doing this, what I was made for and what I was put on earth for. When I started researching what are the goals that I want to set and what are the things I want to achieve, I was shocked. I couldn't believe how the world had changed. The business world is completely different. The speaking world is completely different. So I was really kind of stumped. I'm like, well, I have these really ambitious goals, but half the time I don't even know what I need to really do to get those goals achieved. And so I started researching, and lo and behold, Michael Hyatt sent an email out that said, come check out this webinar to my program, 5 Days to Your Best Year Ever. And so I remember sitting right down by the fireplace with my laptop, watching the webinar, thinking this could really be a solution. Well, I've had really good progress this year, and I attribute it to Michael Hyatt's program. And because of that, I've achieved 2 of my big goals this year. And the first was being able to get my blog up and published and blogging in an ongoing basis. And then secondly, I was able to launch my podcast. So we have had such a good time today. I want to keep talking. And that's been so exciting. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that people in Guyana are downloading my podcast. Of course, I say that about every show, don't I? It's really fun. Because I've had such good success with my first 2 really big goals. And just really accomplishing those has built my belief that I really can do this. And so I'm on to my next goal now, and I'm working really hard to get fit, to shed some weight, so that I can do some of these adventure races that I have always wanted to do, that I used to do years ago before I had children. And now I'm at 50 years old, I'm ready to get back at it. You will be challenged in ways that you did not know. You will be motivated intrinsically from inside. You will be encouraged to keep up the good work. And best of all, you're gonna hit your goals. You know, a lot of times people are sitting there and they look at their life and they think, gosh, I could have done this, I would have done this, I should have done this. And thanks to Michael Hyatt for not being that kind of person, because he's done that. That's enabling me to do the same thing and to have the tools that I need to really make the impact that my heart is longing for. I'm really happy when I look back over the year, because I think, my goodness, I set out these goals at the beginning of the year. I wanted to get my blog and website up and going. I wanted to get my podcast up and running. I wanted to reinvigorate my speaking business and start getting more clients. And then I also wanted to run the Tough Mudder, which is this wonderful athletic competition, and lose some weight. Here I am in November, and of those goals, my blog is up and website is up, and I have activity on there. I'm posting at least 2 to 3 times a week, including I participated in a 31-day challenge where you blogged every day for the month of October. Then my podcast was up and running as of May 1st, and that episode 30 is just about to be, and by the end of the year, I think I'll be probably episode 35 or 40 by the end of the year. So I feel really good about that. I'm kind of finding my groove in the podcast. And then the third thing was the Tough Mudder, and that did not happen. But what did happen was a half marathon, the San Jose Rock and Roll Half Marathon. So that was such a great example of having put that goal out there, and then to be able to come back and say, well, that's not gonna happen, but let me readjust. Going through the program and then sitting down and really clarifying what I wanted to bring out of this year was really super productive for me. What I think was unique about using the system was it broke it into really small pieces, really actionable, tangible behaviors that I could implement. I mean, even just bringing it out once a month to review it and say, where am I on this goal? Where am I on this goal? I remember probably in March, the beginning of March, I was super overwhelmed because I wanted to get that website up, but it was all so foreign to me, all of the terminology, I mean, everything. And I'm like, where do I start? And you know, I just pulled my little goal sheet out again, and I'm like, okay, this is what I have to focus on. Just step back and take your next step forward. I would highly recommend the Best Year Ever program to anyone who wants to move their life forward. I mean, if you just want the same old, don't bother. Because it's not a program for you. But if you're saying, gosh, I really want to move my life forward and I'm not sure how, and I've tried stuff in the past and it didn't work, this is the time. Try this program. I think you'll feel like the bang for the buck is huge. So I highly recommend it.
I'm ready to make a change.
I want to make more money.
I want to get healthy.
I want to start a business.
I want to spend more time with my family.
Welcome back, everybody, to our broadcast, helping you make this year, 2015, your best year ever. We're talking today with New York Times bestselling author Michael Hyatt, goal-setting expert, sharing with us how to make New Year's resolutions that actually stick. Wow, what a time we've had so far.
I can't believe the number of questions.
Yes.
Like hundreds and hundreds of questions.
It's been awesome.
We're not going to get to all of them, but we're going to get to a lot.
We're going to try to get to as many as we can, so I want to thank all of you. Wasn't the story about Mick and Christy just awesome?
So inspiring.
Yes.
I love it. Yep.
Very, very cool. And we want the same for you in 2015. We want this year to be your best year ever. And so we are going to be continuing to ask Michael questions about how to do that. So great job on leaving the questions. Keep going with them. Our team is working behind the scenes to serve them up to me here so we can ask Michael. Also, for those of you who have participated in our contest that we announced at the beginning of the broadcast, we will be announcing the winner to that very soon. And in just a few minutes, we also have another giveaway that we're going to be giving everybody. We've got 2 of them left, so stay tuned for that. Those are all coming up. Michael, we have covered a lot so far. We've talked a lot about the mechanics of goal setting. A lot of the questions coming in some were about characteristics and character traits and things of that nature. And so I want to ask you about that because you being in both the corporate environment, working your way up to the CEO, and also in the entrepreneurial environment, working with a lot of high achievers, you've really identified certain characteristics that help people achieve and get what they want in a year.
Yeah.
Can we talk about those?
Absolutely. So, you know, I did some research looking back through my own experience, and I've had the privilege of working with a lot of best-selling authors, performance coaches, athletes, people that have really done exceedingly well. And I said, what are the characteristics? What are the commonalities between all of these people? And I distilled it down to 5. And so the first thing I noticed is that the people that consistently get what they want out of life believe they can win. It's their basic presupposition in life. You know, they don't go through life with this attitude of they're going to lose, or they can't win, or they're hesitant. But it really comes down to what they believe between their ears. It's a mindset. And if we're going to have our best year ever, we've got to believe that it's possible, that we really can get in the best shape of our lives, or we really can have that relationship that's so meaningful, or we really can accomplish what we want in our business or in our career. So the people that consistently get what they want believe they can win.
Can I just challenge you on this for a second?
Yeah.
What if somebody struggles with that? How do they change that?
Well, first of all, it's not just as simple as saying, okay, then I'm going to believe I can win.
Yeah. Flip the switch.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next characteristic. But I think that one of the things to do is to be able to be aware of the limiting beliefs that are in your head. Because there's what happens to us. Usually this comes from a past experience. But there's what happens to us. And then there's the narrative that we build around that informs us and says what happened to us. So two people can go through the same experience, and one person can see it as something that makes them stronger and as a stepping stone to greater achievement. The other person can take it as a big setback. And it's all about mindset. So I think it's this whole idea of limiting beliefs. And that's a huge issue.
And just getting clear on what those are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because in conversation with my wife last night, one of the questions I asked her was, what do you hear me saying often that you would think would be a limiting belief? And she identified one right away.
Really?
She said, you always say that you're not good with details. She said, I hear you say that all the time. And so therefore you avoid anything that has to do with details. And she said, I don't know if that's because you don't like it or if that actually really is a limiting belief that's holding you back, from making progress. So it was interesting because
that's a great question.
Being, my wife, she's with me all the time. She hears the conversations that maybe to everybody else I keep inside my head, but I probably share them more often with her because we're so close, obviously.
The cool thing about that is that our language often is the access point to those limiting beliefs. And I remember one that I used to have. I used to say to myself, when I was in a situation where I needed to go out and meet people, I'd say, but I'm an introvert. And so I'd shut myself down before it started. Now, I like these personality classifications and all this, as long as it sets us free and enables us to achieve what we want to accomplish. But it becomes a limiting belief when it shuts us down, when it gets in the way, when it becomes an obstacle to us. And so what I started saying to myself after that, once I identified that limiting belief, is that, you know what? Yes, I do have a propensity to be an introvert. I recharge alone. But that doesn't mean I can't exhibit extrovert behavior when it's necessary, when it serves me, or when I want to serve somebody else. So when I go out to a speaking event, like one of the most frightening things to me, I don't mind getting up on stage. But meeting people before I speak,
right?
And I used to wouldn't do that because I said, well, I'm an introvert. And I said, no, if I can meet those people, shake their hands, warm them up, my message has a much warmer reception.
Right.
So I just changed my belief system. And I said, introversion, extroversion is largely a belief system, and I can be an extrovert for a while, and I'm going to be one.
Okay, awesome. So number one characteristic is people believe they can win. What's number two?
Number two is get past the past. People that consistently get what they want in life are able to get past the past. They don't see their past failures as a limiting thing. And I like the way Tony Robbins says it. He says, your future does not equal your past. And I think sometimes we think that if we've had a failure, a bad experience, that somehow we're destined forever to repeat that. I went through a horrible business failure in 1991. And my whole world came crashing down around me. We didn't actually go bankrupt because we didn't have any assets that were unencumbered to be able to pay off our creditors. So it was everything but going bankrupt. But it was a time of deep humiliation, a time of embarrassment. We had people from our church bringing us groceries.
Wow.
It was terrible. So fast forward about 20 years, and I'm thinking about going out on my own again. I'd been a CEO, very successful CEO for a number of years, and I thought, I really want to realize my lifelong dream of being a public speaker, being a writer full time. But there was this nagging thing in my heart where I thought, well, I tried that once and it didn't go so well.
Right.
And so I had to work through that and get to closure on the past so that I didn't drag it into the future. And so people that consistently get what they want are able to go through a process of bringing closure to the past so they can turn the page and get on to the next chapter.
And it's not to dismiss it per se,
No,
because you
absolutely
still
not.
feel that. I mean,
Absolutely.
I can sense it from you, like
Yeah.
going back to those memories, you still feel the hurt of that situation, but it's not preventing you from being able to move forward.
That's right. So it's not the kind of thing where it becomes a limiting belief. It becomes something that keeps me from moving forward, but it's something that I don't just happy talk myself into a new reality. I don't. I acknowledge it. You know what? That hurt. I went through that. That really happened. But I would never want to repeat that experience, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. That became the foundation, the seedbed that gave me wisdom and the courage to ultimately succeed.
Okay, so number 1, believe you can win. Number 2, get past the past. What's number 3?
Okay, this is really important.
Okay.
Set the right kinds of goals. What most people mistake for goals are really just intentions. You know, somebody says, and I'll tell you there are millions of people all across North America, probably the entire world right now, who are saying, I'm going to lose weight this year.
Right.
Well, that's an aspiration. It's an intention, and that's fine. That's a good place to start. I mean, you got to recognize where you are.
Yep.
But it's not specific, and it's not measurable. And more importantly, it doesn't have a deadline. So a better goal would be, I want to lose 25 pounds by June the 1st, for example.
Yep.
So there's something specific, something measurable, something that has a deadline. And the great thing about deadlines is they create urgency and they create focus. And it feels sometimes risky. We think, oh my gosh, if I put a deadline on that goal, what's going to happen if I don't achieve it?
Right.
Well, what is going to happen?
Yeah. And, you know
Probably
what?
nothing.
I'm smiling because I remember one of the mistakes that I made with my goals last year was I remember you talking about the importance of making it measurable and the importance of setting a deadline. The only challenge, the problem that I had with mine was I set my deadline, all of them, for December 31st at the end of the year.
That's very common.
Yeah. So,
I've done it too.
You know, I didn't have any urgency until the last quarter of the year, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I got all these goals I haven't accomplished. So I think the lesson that I learned from that is to stagger those
Yes.
deadlines, to help, so that you are making progress throughout the year.
Yep, absolutely. Let me just give you one more example. Another example, and there are millions of people that also want to write a book. Probably millions.
With the right kind of goals. What's number 4?
4 is to tap into the power of motivation. Now, I'm not talking about, listening to a pump-up video or getting yourself all jacked up in the morning, although, frankly, those things can help. But what I'm really talking about is doing the deep thinking about why that's important. My wife, Gail, has a saying. She says, when people lose their why, they lose their way.
When they lose their way.
Why? When they lose their why,
They
lose their way.
Got it. Okay, when they lose their why, they lose their way.
So it's important with each one of these goals that you set to find or identify your why. Why is that important? Like, for example, if you want to lose 25 pounds, let me just say that's an example. Why is that important? And to write down the first thing that comes to mind. Maybe because I want to feel good about myself, or I want to look better, or I want to live longer so that I can be available to my children and my grandchildren, or I want to be in the best health I can be in so I can serve the people that I really love. I mean, all those would be valid whys. But keep peeling that back, peeling it like an onion almost, and get to that core. Here's what happens. In the pursuit of any goal that's meaningful, inevitably you get to that place where you don't think you can finish. It's like running a half marathon or a marathon where, you're in the middle of the race and you're too invested to stop, but you're not sure you've got the energy to finish.
Right.
And it's at that moment that if you don't have your why identified, you're going to lose your way. And a lot of people walk off the field before the whistle blows. They quit because they never identified their why. The why is what keeps you going when you want to quit. And so what I teach in the course and what I recommend to people is that for every goal, they list anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 whys as to why that's important. So they can review these when the going gets tough.
And it's interesting because this year, I really experienced that working with you on our projects. We were in the midst of some where we weren't going to hit our goals, and we reconnected to the why. The whole team got, re-energized, refocused, and, one of the things that I always share with people is that I find that I get most creative when I'm most desperate.
Yes.
And because there was urgency, to accomplish those goals, we came up with incredible ideas as a team. And we not only hit the goals, but surpassed it. We were connected to the why, the reason why we wanted to do this, why we were, going back to the drawing board to figure this thing out. We got creative, and magic happened because of the urgency behind it.
And we really grew as a team, too.
Yeah.
So the growth happens when you do that, too.
So it happens in all facets of life, and but it starts with that why. Okay, so believe you can win, get past the past, set the right kind of goals, tap into the power of motivation. What's the fifth characteristic?
The fifth characteristic that people who consistently get what they want out of life is that they beat procrastination. They get started. They get in motion. I love this Zig Ziglar quote that says, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Right.
And it's a great quote. But I think that's true. And I've observed this in all the high achievers I know, the people that consistently get what they want. They get started. They don't get it perfect. And perfectionism is often something that's related to procrastination. It's often the mother of procrastination.
Right.
And so they just get started. And this is why I really believe when we're setting goals that it's not important to have a detailed action plan to really see the entire path before us, but to see the next step, and more importantly, to act on it. Until we get into motion, the entire path doesn't become clear. And people often get this wrong. It's like they sit back and they say, until I know what the resources are, until I have the right strategy, until I can see the whole path, I'm not going to start. That's not how high achievers do it. They say, you know what, I got clarity about the next step, I'm going to take that one. And I'm going to trust that it's going to open up and that the steps are going to get progressively clear as I get in motion.
You build momentum.
You do. You build momentum.
Yep.
So forget about what you don't have, the clarity that you don't have. What do you have that's clear to you now that you can take action on, trusting that the path will open up as you move forward?
I'm smiling because I totally am a victim of the procrastination. I remember recently our family moved and I'm setting up my new office and I said to myself, I can't do certain things until I have the whiteboards set up.
Yeah.
It's something so silly, but we get drawn into these little elements where we procrastinate, taking that next step and moving forward.
Yep. And so that's the thing that these high achievers, the people that consistently get what they want, do. They just act. They have this disposition that leads them to action.
Well, very cool. I want to thank you for sharing this, and I want to share with everybody that we have just posted on the page here. You'll be able to download a PDF infographic that outlines these 5 characteristics that Michael just went through. So that's our gift to you, and we've got another gift coming to you toward the end of today's broadcast as well. So stay tuned for that. Next thing I want to do is I just want to thank all of you, and this is incredible. We've got thousands of people tuned in live during this broadcast, hundreds and hundreds of questions coming through, so thank you so much for those. We are going to dive into those now. I want to ask you, Michael, some more questions as we dive into this. And I also want to remind people that we will be announcing the contest winner, and we've also got, as I said, another special gift that we'll be giving everybody toward the end of today's broadcast. So lots of questions coming through. I'm going to dive into these now. Okay, so let's see here.
I'm going to try to keep my answers short so we can get more questions.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm just talking to myself.
Okay, so this one is from Claudia.
Okay.
Claudia said, how do you keep from becoming overwhelmed setting too many goals? And we've talked about, she said you have a recommendation for a good number, and we've said 7 to 10, but how do you prevent yourself from getting overwhelmed, especially if the goal's really big?
Yeah, well, I try to break it down into the bite-sized chunks. So for example, when I had that goal to write the book, and I'd actually written several books before, so I had a little bit of an advantage knowing what it takes. But when you think about writing a book, that's a big old hairy goal. So what I said was, okay, day 1, I'm going to actually just set up the files on my computer. So I named one file Chapter 1, and I put Chapter 1 inside the file, closed it down, did Chapter 2, Chapter 3. That's all I did for one day.
So wait a minute, time out. Your first thing that you did was just create file names for the chapter.
That's it.
And then you walked away.
Yep. Second day, came back and I did what publishers call the front matter. I did the title page, I did the table of contents, the acknowledgments, the dedication, the copyright page, which I cut and pasted. I was done for the day.
Interesting.
So it's just another step. The next day, I began writing the easiest chapter first. I didn't start with the hardest chapter because I knew I needed a head of steam and some momentum in order to plow my way through that difficult chapter. And I didn't want to get discouraged early in the process. So I wrote the easiest chapter first. You can't do this with fiction, but with nonfiction you can. Then the next, that took me a couple days, and then I worked on the next easiest chapter next, and I started building up some momentum, some confidence, and that's what carried me through.
That's fascinating because most of us would start from the front page and try to work all the way through.
I know.
But just make it easy for yourself. And
That's
break
right.
it down.
That's right. Chunk it down.
Very cool. Okay, great. Arthur asked, how do you delineate between a goal that is hard to achieve and one that may not be reasonable at all or at this time to pursue?
Yeah,
Like for example,
yeah.
I may want to play in the NBA, but let's be honest. At 5'9", I'm not really going to have a chance, even though that might be an aspirational goal. So how do you differentiate between aspirational things like that?
Well, this is an important thing because there are some times when there are things that are limiting beliefs, but there are some times when there's just circumstances that it's not a limiting belief, it's reality, right? So I look at it as 3 zones. And so I don't want to have my goals set in what I call the comfort zone. So that's where I feel confident, where I feel clarity, where I have the resources I need to achieve. That's playing it too safe. It's not going to stretch me, I'm not going to see growth, and ultimately it's not going to be satisfying. Where I try to get to is the discomfort zone. This is that realm which is just beyond the comfort zone where I begin to feel the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I see those as positive indicators that I'm on the right track.
Right.
So I'm dialing it up until I start feeling some of those feelings, like I'm not really clear how I'm going to do it. I don't really have the resources or the contacts. Then I think, okay, that's about right.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to grow. Now, what I don't want to do is go into the third zone, which is the delusional zone, which would be you playing in the NBA,
right.
Or me being on the PGA Tour. Anybody who's played golf with me knows that. But the delusional tour, delusional tour, the delusional zone is that zone that if you really pursue that and get too crazy, it really will hurt your confidence.
So how do you differentiate that? Is there a way that you distinguish those, or is it a gut feel? Like
it's a lot gut feel. It's practice. Sometimes you'll get it wrong. Sometimes things. Well, I can tell you, in a recent product launch that we did, we had a goal that we thought was really a stretch goal, and as we look back on it, we weren't thinking big enough.
Right.
So we only do that in retrospect.
It can work both ways.
It can work both ways.
Yep.
Absolutely. So it just takes some practice. I think it also takes sharing it with people that love us and know us best, where they can say, no, I think that's right for you. I had one I shared with my trainer. I'm not going to share it with everybody here. But I shared it with my trainer last week as to what my goal was for 2015. And I said, I want to get this goal by April the 1st. And he said, I don't think so. He said, I think by June the 1st, that'd be awesome. So it's just good. It was good to just have that calibration from a friend.
And the opposite, you shared a goal with me this morning. And I said, dude, you got to dial that thing up.
I know.
So it can work both ways.
Yeah, that kind of took my breath away when you said that. But I love that.
Okay, so some more questions coming through here. One from Kyra. Kyra asked, what is the best way, I guess we've already covered this. Kyra asked, what is the best way to break down your giant goals into manageable daily activities? So actually, let me piggyback off of that. Having a big goal and then breaking it down, that doesn't make sub-goals, does it? Those are just tasks.
No, I just see it as tasks. I don't get that complicated. I mean, if you're going to build a nuclear sub, you've got to have a really complicated plan. But for most of us in our lives, we don't need that, and it just becomes, again, a fancy way to procrastinate. So I'd identify as many tasks as you can see, but don't overdo it. Literally 1 task per goal. If that's all you can see right now, fine. Put that task down, knock it out, and then add another one. So that's how I break it down. So
I don't want to give anybody permission, though, to then take their 30 goals and then just organize them as tasks, because that's not really what we're saying.
No, that's not what we're saying here. That's right.
Okay. Okay, so this one is from Juan who asked, what are the tried and true routines that help you progress and meet your goals?
Well, I think what we shared earlier in the first part of the program, where this whole idea of visibility and regular review and accountability. As I've talked to these various high achievers in every different kind of industry and every different category, they all do that. They keep the goals visible. Could be a vision board, could be a set of goals hanging on your wall, could be something you tuck away in Evernote or some other application, but they keep them visible, they review them regularly, and they build the accountability in. And by the way, this is something we haven't talked about. People often ask, should I share my goals publicly?
And so what's your opinion on that?
Well, I used to think you should. In fact, I would blog about my goals.
So you'd make them real public.
Really public. Because I thought that that would create the leverage I needed to actually achieve them. Then I watched this video, a TED Talk by Derek Sivers, who was the founder of CD Baby.
Yep.
And he basically argues the total opposite. And he bases it on some science, some research that was done, where you get the psychological benefit of announcing the goal as if you would have achieved it.
Interesting.
So it takes all the punch out of it, and so now you don't have any leverage at all. Now, I actually believe in a middle ground, something I call selective sharing. So I think you should share your goals with people who will love and encourage you, who will help you brainstorm when you're stuck, who will help provide resources if necessary, but very selectively. So I don't share all my goals with really anybody.
Yep.
Not even, well, I have shared them all with my wife.
Okay. Yeah.
But there are some, I mean, I know she's got some that she's not sharing with me.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably going to be nagging her about it. So you got to be selective in how you're sharing your goals. You know, can that person be somebody that can really support me and help me get there? Because you don't want to share it with the naysayers in your life.
Right.
Like, oh, well, you tried that weight loss thing before? What are you thinking?
Right.
You're not going to do that. You don't need that in your life.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's good. And the other thing I would say to that, because I know you, is that you have very established routines as well.
Yes.
Like a morning routine, an evening routine,
Yep.
all of which help you stay on track and keep the right things in the right focus.
Yeah, I kind of let rituals and routine run my life in a way, just so I can put them on automatic pilot and use my creativity for other things so that the important things get done on a consistent, persistent basis. So, for example, I get up every morning at 5, and I mean, even if it's a weekend, I get up at 5. And I've got a very deliberate routine that I go through, including my exercise regimen, my own spiritual pursuit, my intellectual growth, all that.
Very cool. Okay, so Donna has a great question about team goals. She said, I did your workbook last year and have had great success with goals I had control of, like marathon, marks, weight, finished some tough projects, quilt, cleaned up a sewing room, and she said, thank you for that. She said, a whole different story, not so rewarding around goals I want to accomplish this year is with a team. Any advice?
Yeah, a couple is, first of all, that there's got to be group ownership. So the best way to do team, or to do goals with the team, is to do goals with the team.
Yeah.
You know, so for example, you may come up with some goals, but I would not go into a meeting if I were the leader with the team and reveal my goals first and say, basically, here's what I've decided we're going to do this year. Is everybody excited? Any questions? Great, let's go. Because there's no ownership. There's no alignment around that.
Right.
So the ownership creates the alignment and creates the forward momentum that you need.
So how would you facilitate that, creating the goals as a group? What are some first
Well,
steps?
there's a whole process. I mean, there's a whole process you could go through, but one of the simple things is let's just start brainstorming. What could be possible goals? And then prioritize those. And people will help you.
Right.
People will see things that you don't see. And this is where I love using a team in this process because I can't see it all clearly from my vantage point.
And I love that starting question. What could be possible for us as a company, as an organization, et cetera?
Because again, nothing's set in concrete as we're looking toward the future. What would we create if we could? And to really get into that realm of possibility and asking your team for their best ideas, and there are no bad ideas. So just write down all the ideas, no matter what somebody says. If Joe over here has some knuckleheaded idea that you just go, are you kidding me? Write it down. Just keep writing it because it'll get filtered out. And then start filtering, start prioritizing. You can start asking them. I mean, I've done simple things like everybody go up and write a check next to the one that they think, pick 7 or 8. And write a check next to those, and let's tally them up, and let's see what their most important ones are. And as a leader, you can always give input too. Like, I don't think we're going to do that this year. We'll maybe do that later. But then basically ask the question, can we be aligned about these? And let's put the deadlines. And the thing you want mostly is the ownership.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. All right. So James has a question about self-discipline. James said, the most fundamental core problem I have is with self-discipline. Saying no to what I need to say no to, and actioning plans. I'm great at making good plans, but awful at executing them. Any advice on how to turn plans into actions? And for the record, James, you're not alone.
No, that's a very common problem.
Yeah, so how do you combat that?
I would say in that case, James needs to identify his why. The thing about self-discipline, my friend Andy Andrews says, he defines self-discipline this way, is can you make yourself do something you don't want to do for the sake of a result you want to get?
Say that again.
Can you make yourself do something you don't want to do for the sake of a result you want to get? So for example, I do not like going to the gym. I do it 6 days a week, but I don't particularly like going.
Right.
But I like feeling great. I like being at my ideal weight. I like having all the energy I need. So that's the result. Can I make myself get out of bed, put my shoes on, my gym clothes, and drive to the gym. Can I do that for the sake of the goal? The focus is not on how anguishing that process is.
Right.
The focus is on the result. So I would just say to people who struggle with self-discipline, focus on the result you're after. If you've got a weight loss goal, visualize yourself at your ideal weight or at the weight loss goal. Think about what's going to be possible when you're at that weight, what that would mean for you. You've got to invest it with meaning.
So get in tune with the why, like you talked
That's
about
right.
earlier.
Get clear on the why.
Very cool. All right. Jim asked, I start out great, then mid-year or a few months in, I drop the ball. How do I keep going? So it sounds like a momentum question.
Yeah, well, I would say that it's never too late to restart.
You had a good example of that before with somebody, I think that was on your team in the corporate world, that got 6 months in, was behind on his goals, and
got re-energized
Yeah.
and got really focused and ended up beating his plan in the last 3 months of the year.
Wow.
So, I just think to realize that possibility that we can restart at any time and to not kind of ingest that and say, well, I'm a failure. I didn't achieve that goal. I'm a failure. No, there's still time on the clock. Don't walk off the field before the whistle blows. And I see this people doing this all the time. It's so often been the case. You've witnessed this on our team where it looked bleak, it looked dark, it looked like we weren't going to achieve the goal.
Right.
But just staying engaged, staying with it, working right up till the clock, till it's over. It's amazing what you can accomplish.
And we made some incredible discoveries about our ability as a group and as a team to be able to push through that.
That's right.
And then not only hit, but exceed our what we thought was our potential. It became a new standard for ourselves.
That's right.
So yeah, it really creates.
But it's standing for that outcome and just staying engaged.
And I think it comes back to what you talked about earlier, reviewing your goals quarterly. That really gives you a chance to go deep and evaluate and decide how you're going to change course or meet.
Because you have a couple options, one of which is to revise the goal.
Yep. Okay, great. There's a couple questions that are similar here. I want to ask them right back to back. I think it's Genevieve, hopefully I said that right, Genevieve, asked, I feel I haven't tapped into my potential yet, my potential to help and inspire others. I want to know how to dream bigger so that I can create greatness for me, my kids, and others around me. That's awesome for Genevieve. But how do you dream? If you're not used to letting go and thinking big, how do you get to that place?
This is one place to start. And I don't know if you've read this book, The Magic of Thinking Big.
Awesome.
Amazing book.
What's his first name? His last name's Schwartz, right? The author?
Yeah.
It's not Eugene Schwartz.
I don't know, but you just look it up on
It's a great
Amazon.
book.
Magic of Thinking Big. But terrific book. That was one of the first books I ever read about this that just kind of opened up the possibility to me that the future could be different than it is today. And the science of goal setting says that if you set your goals too small, the likelihood of you achieving them is actually degraded or diminished. So setting bigger goals, it's more likely they'll happen than smaller goals.
Interesting.
And that requires us to dream. And I think, again, it kind of goes back to what we began with. And I know we're running out of time, so I'll try to finish this quickly. But I think that it goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning, that you've got to set aside a time and a place. You've got to really focus and really get out of those distractions where you can not be stressed by all the stuff that's happening around you. Take a deep breath and just say, what do I really want for the future? Because the sand's going out through the hourglass.
Right.
The time's running out. I don't know how many years any of us have left, but it's going to be less time tomorrow than it was today.
Right.
And it's going to be less time next year than it was today. So why not get started today?
Very, very cool. And along that, Carrie asked a similar question. She says, I hesitate to choose a bigger goal because of all the steps or mini goals I need to take first. I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. On the other hand, I don't want to unnecessarily put up delays by postponing the big goal for fewer years. Do you have any guidelines to use in selecting a realistic goal?
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to that question we had just a minute ago. I was thinking of those three zones.
Yep.
So you've got your comfort zone, the discomfort zone, the delusional zone. And this is, you just kind of have to play with it. And you have to say, okay, is this really, am I playing it safe? Is it inside of my comfort zone? Then let me just dial it up a few clicks so I can get into the discomfort zone. And what sometimes I do is like go right up to the delusional zone and then back it off a few clicks.
Gotcha.
Because those are the goals that are compelling.
Right.
Like when you said to me this goal today, when you said I was thinking too small and you dialed it up,
Yeah.
I mean, that like moved me way out into my discomfort zone.
Yeah.
But I like that because I was immediately thinking, okay, so I got to think different about this.
Right.
So
No, okay, fair enough. This one, Tina asked, and I'm sure we can all relate. We've touched on this a little bit, but she said, my biggest problem is procrastination, and all capital letters.
Yes.
She said, last year I retired and have lots of time, but I still find I am constantly procrastinating, finding excuses to do anything but what I should be doing. How do I get out of this habit?
This reminds me of that Bob Newhart video, Stop It. Remember that? When his patient comes in and he goes through all these problems and Newhart just finally just says, well, just stop it. Well, procrastination is one of those things. Sometimes I think it's perfectionism that leads to that. I just think you've got to get a bite-sized piece. You know, like I was talking about in writing the book. You know, well, do you think you could create 12 files? You know, which was all I did in my case.
Right.
You know, do you think you could do the front matter of the book? But to just dial it back, like here's another one. If you're thinking about weight loss, for example, maybe it's as simple as I'm going to make an appointment with somebody at the gym and talk about this, or get a tour of the gym, or I'm going to sign up for a half marathon or a 10K or a 5K. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody. But get some small step that you can take.
Yep.
And then share it with somebody that loves you, that wants you to see you succeed, and say, please hold me accountable to this.
Yeah.
I can't do this on my own. Just hold me accountable just for this small step.
And I think that's the big thing. I would say to Tina, like, for me, myself, that's what really helped, was the accountability piece.
Yep.
You know, I had tried multiple times on certain goals. Like I shared with you this morning, one of mine was the strength training. And I had tried multiple times on my own and then realized that I needed help. And so I got the help of an accountability partner trainer, and now that I have made major progress toward
that's
that.
good.
So I think the accountability partner is key too. Cool.
Okay.
Okay, Rachel asked, I know I want to have...
Are you watching the time?
Yes.
Okay,
We
good.
got about 5 minutes and then we're going to shift gears because we got some more that we want to share with all of you. Rachel asked, I know I want to have my best year ever in 2015. Hooray to that, Rachel. But I'm struggling to know which goals to pick. I feel paralyzed. Any advice? So sounds like she's got a bunch of goals. How does she know which ones to pick?
Yeah, I would use my own excitement about the goal as almost like a Geiger counter.
Okay.
You know, so you're looking at your goals, and some goals just aren't energizing. You know you should, but you don't want to. So start with the ones you want to. You know, what gets you excited? This is a missing component in a lot of goal setting. You know, it often happens in corporations where somebody says, okay, I want to get 5% more sales than this last year. And it's kind of small, it's not energizing, you feel like you should, it's just not compelling. So I would use that as an indicator.
Okay.
Am I personally excited about this? And forget the ones that you're not excited about. Just focus on the ones that you're excited about, where you know that if you could do that, it would be meaningful to you.
Very good. Okay, this one is interesting because this one Susie asked, and she said, I'm fired up about setting goals. I only have one problem. My husband isn't. Some of the goals I want to achieve, like financial ones, need his buy-in to accomplish them. How do I get him on board? So that's a great question from
That's
Susie.
a great question. I'm not sure I have an answer. No, it's tough when you're in that situation. I've gotten that question a lot. But I think, first of all, it's like any kind of leadership, is that you've got to lead yourself first. And I think that sometimes, unfortunately, we have to lead ourselves in an environment where other people don't care about that. But I also believe that over time, if we'll do that consistently, we really can change people's perspective. And sometimes people come around slowly. They may see the progress you've made and may say, you know what, let's talk about this. Maybe that is meaningful. So the key thing is not get sidetracked on stuff you don't have control over. You know, if it requires his participation and you're not sure you can get that, then set another goal or state it in a way that doesn't require his participation.
Okay.
But I would just say, take control of what you can take control of. And, from my perspective, trust God with the rest.
And you had a great series too on your podcast where you and your wife Gail talked about working together and alignment. So I'd recommend Rachel. Is it Rachel? Susie. I'd recommend Susie go check that out because that was a great series, which was both you and your wife.
Yeah, I think it was called "Help I'm Married to an Entrepreneur."
Yeah, it was great. Okay, so I want to answer a few more questions because we've still got tons of questions coming through. And again, we're so thankful to all of you. This has just been an awesome experience, and we're so grateful to have you along with us. This one was from, Don. We'll get to that one in just a second. Okay, here we go. So this one's from Catherine. Catherine asked, are habits and goals two different things. She said, there's been discussion on the forum about habits as goals. I find most of my goals are to establish a habit. For some of these, I can identify a smarter goal the habits will contribute to, but for others, I can't. I'm working toward a state of being. Can you address this issue of how to handle habits in the context of Best Year Ever?
Yeah, so I do state those as goals.
Okay.
You know, sometimes they can be a supporting habit that leads to a bigger goal, but the goal itself is not measurable. So for example, I want to love my wife more. You know, but that problem is that's not measurable. How do I get to the end of 2015 and say, well, did I or didn't I? I mean, I could ask her, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, I could take a survey of one and get her to do a performance evaluation of me, which is kind of scary to think about. But another way to do that would be to set a habit as the goal. So, you know, if I haven't been doing this, I would do a date night. You know, or I challenged the guys who I'm mentoring one year, and I got this idea from a friend of mine, which was for them, when they came in at the end of the day, this is all guys in this, to stand within 5 feet of their wife for 5 minutes and just ask them how their day was. And everybody committed to do that just as a habit on a daily basis, 5 days a week. So it was great. I mean, guys came back and reported tremendous conversations. It didn't usually last 5 minutes. It usually lasted longer.
Yeah.
But it communicated a lot of wonderful things to their spouse. And so those habits can unlock those bigger goals, but if we don't reduce them to habits, then the goal just becomes an aspiration and something we don't ever actually accomplish.
So I think the moral of the story there is you can have both.
You can,
habit
totally.
goals and other goals too. Okay. Now, a lot of the questions coming through now, Michael, are around your particular course, 5 Days to Your Best Year Ever. And so I certainly want to get to those particular questions. But before we dive into them, can you tell us a little bit about 5 Days to Your Best Year Ever?
Yeah, well, I really built it for the kind of people that would show up at a call like this. And the one thing I know about the people that are on this call, or the thousands of people that are on this call, is most of the people that are here want a life that matters and they want to reach their potential. There are others on here that just feel like there's too much to do and too little time, and the important things, unfortunately, are falling through the cracks. And then some people know that they're capable of more, but it just feels like time is running out. And then there are people that they don't want to survive. They want to make meaningful progress towards something that matters. But now, early in 2015, here on January the 2nd, we're at a crossroads, at a fork in the road. And there's a couple of options. First of all, you could just give up. You hear all this talk about best year ever and about goal setting. It would be easy, if you're not careful, to just say, I'm just going to give up. Another option, though, is that you could continue to go it alone, hoping to get better results in this next year than you've gotten in the past. Or third, you could let me help you get better results by using proven strategies. And it really comes down to this question: do you have the time? What's the lost opportunity cost of putting your life on hold and not achieving your goals? And I understand how hard it can be. I've faced the same challenges you face today, including the overwhelming demands of a large family and a growing career that never seems to leave time for anything else. But along the way, I've made a lot of mistakes. And as a former book publisher, I've also had the opportunity to work side by side with some of the most accomplished people in the world. And for years, I've been privileged to study their habits and their best practices. And amazingly, I figured out how to accomplish extraordinary success, both personally and professionally, and accomplish what matters most. But here's the key thing that you've got to remember. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that you've tried and failed to set goals or that you keep getting derailed. The process is simply broken. What you need is a better way. And that's exactly why I developed my course. You've heard Stu and I refer to it a few times here. 5 Days to Your Best Year Ever. I leveraged all of my experience and my relationships to extract exactly what you need to reach your potential in 2015. You know, it's not just about setting goals for the next year. It's about discovering a powerful process for identifying the right goals and using a proven plan to actually accomplish them. But first, before I tell you about the course, I want to mention another bonus that we've got, Stu. If you stay on this broadcast till the end, I'm going to give you a copy of my new ebook, Set Yourself Up for Your Best Year Ever. And you're going to love this because in it, I interview a bunch of high achievers about what they do every year to set themselves up for their best year. I talked to Tony Robbins, Dave Ramsey, John Maxwell, Marie Forleo, 25 people in all. And we'll give you a link to that at the end of the broadcast. But 5 Days to Your Best Year Ever. Here's what I believe about it. It's the only goal-setting course you'll ever need. It's designed to guide you through the process of designing your best year ever. It takes just 30 to 45 minutes a day, or 1/2 day session. You can do it like Stu was talking about doing it all last night. But it's designed to give you the clarity, the courage, and the commitment to finally achieve your biggest dreams. And I introduced the course last year for the first time, and we had 2,500 happy customers go through it. And this year already, we've got more than 5,000 people going through the course. People like, let me give you some examples here. Christy Largent, former stay-at-home mom that you heard from earlier in the show, launched a successful new career as a blogger and as a podcaster. Ray Edwards, dear friend of ours, Stu, who is host of the Ray Edwards podcast. Last year, after he went through Best Year Ever, he eliminated over $100,000 of debt, and he also lost 35 pounds. And he credits it all to the course. And then Madison Canna, a college student who completed a novel while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. So here's what we cover in the course. It's built around these 5 days. Day 1, video 1, I share 3 truths about the future that you must embrace if you're going to design your best year ever. And specifically, I talk about your limiting beliefs and how they're keeping you stuck. I also talk about the importance or the power of clarity and why it's more important than strategy or resources. And then I talk about why you won't get more of what you want until you're thankful for what you have. We want to plan out of a place of gratitude and abundance. Then, in day 2, video 2, I share 7 powerful questions to ask about last year. And these are designed to help you process your experiences and ensure that they don't hold you back and keep you stuck. Specifically, I talk about why you need to deal with disappointments, regrets, and losses so they don't sabotage your success. And then I also talk about how to distill the major lessons from the past year so you don't end up repeating them again next year. And then we get to day 3, video 3. I share exactly how to turn vague aspirations into powerful, compelling goals. And I do this by diving into the 4 goal-setting habits that high achievers employ to accomplish their biggest goals. And specifically, I talk about, and I love this one, how to increase the likelihood of achieving your goals by 42%. One simple hack or technique that'll do that. Then I talk about the science that proves your goals should be bigger, not smaller, which we touched on a moment ago, and why SMART goals are necessary but insufficient. Then on day 4, video 4, I share how you can identify your why and unleash a powerful source of personal motivation by taking 5 specific actions. And specifically, I talk about why you must connect with your goals intellectually and, more importantly, emotionally. And then how to keep your motivations present to your thinking so they energize you to finish and they're available to you when you're tempted to quit. And then in day 5, the last day, as it turns out, identifying the goal is only half the job. In this video, I share how you can take definitive action now, build momentum, and harness the power of incremental change over time. And we deal specifically with procrastination. I talk about one word you absolutely must eliminate from your vocabulary to make steady progress. I talk about how to make sure the urgent doesn't crowd out the important. We had a lot of questions about that today. And then a simple hack for getting unstuck when you don't know what to do next. Now here's how the content's delivered. There are 5 separate videos, 1 for each day. We include a complete transcript of the video as well. And in addition to that, we include a workbook for each day with exercises designed to help you apply what you learned. The transcript and the workbook are delivered via PDF, and we make available the video and the audio, both streaming, and also you can download that as well. Then you'll also have exclusive access to our community forums. Man, this is, I think, one of the best parts of the program, where you get peer-to-peer access and accountability and encouragement from like-minded people who are committed to the same things that you're committed to. And by the way, the site is totally responsive, so you can access it on any device. Oops, I lost my screen here. So you can access it on any device, whether it's an iPad, an iPhone, an Android device, or whatever. So who is this course for? Well, 5 days to your best year ever is for almost everyone. But let me break it down a little further. It's for entrepreneurs, including small business owners, authors, artists, designers, bloggers, speakers, coaches, consultants, freelancers, and contractors. It's for corporate leaders or executives, including CEOs, CFOs, C-suite executives, and so forth. It's also for ministry leaders, people that are pastors or church staff, denominational executives, or anyone working in a nonprofit or a volunteer organization. Also, and we had a lot of these people in the course last year, public servants, including elected officials, political appointees, military personnel, and so forth. Educators, including administrators, deans, principals, professors, teachers, even homeschooling parents. And then finally, students, including those in high school. If you have a kid that's in high school, this is totally appropriate for them. College, even graduate students. In short, anyone who wants to make 2015 their best year ever, whether in your professional life, personal life, or both. How much time does it take? Well, just 45 minutes a day for 5 days, or one single half-day session. That's it. And 5 days to your best year ever comes in 2 different editions. And first is the independent study course option. This is a 5-module course. It includes a downloadable workbook and action plan, the exclusive online community that I was talking about a few moments ago, and then a 30-day money-back guarantee. You know, if the course is not everything I said it was, if it doesn't help you, whatever, 30 days, total money back. But it also comes in the VIP course option. And this year, I'm offering a very special VIP package, and this includes everything in the independent study package, plus all the bonuses, which I'm going to describe here in a minute, along with a carefully designed program for those seeking extra guidance throughout the entire year. Look, it's inevitable. You're going to face some kind of challenge on the path to making this your best year ever. We all do. And it's in these moments when you're going to be tested, and that's why I'm going to be there for you every single month. With monthly coaching videos, I'm going to keep you focused on track while providing you with helpful strategies for overcoming the obstacles that stand in your way. In addition to that, we're going to have quarterly live check-in calls where every 3 months, once a quarter, you'll have the opportunity to ask me specific follow-up questions. This is where you're going to get the personalized answers to any question you have about moving yourself closer and closer to accomplishing your goals. Then an exclusive presentation at the halfway point in the year where I'm going to be talking about how do you overcome the messy middle, how do you get restarted if you've quit or gotten stuck. And then an invitation to a private Facebook group, which is already active and very exciting. We got people helping other people. I'm ducking in there as I can and offering help as well. So which one is right for you? Here's how I think about it. Envision yourself about to take a road trip. If you're the kind of person who can confidently stay the course once you have a roadmap, then select the independent study option. However, if you're the kind of person who would rather have the benefit of a guide or a GPS system keeping you on track in your whole journey, then select the VIP option. The price is just one easy payment of either $197 or $497, depending on whether you want to go it alone or get the additional coaching from me. But here's the catch. This offer ends at midnight on January the 8th. At that point, the course closes down. Actually, it doesn't close if you register for it, but you can't get into it until we open it up again at the end of the year for the 2016 edition. So this is your chance to make 2015 your best year ever. But that's not all. I've also created 3 bonus products you'll get with this course absolutely free. In bonus number 1, this is an exclusive interview that Stu does with me, where you get to see in real time me process this last year and get past the past. Bonus number 2, your template for a productive day. Stu alluded to this earlier, but one of the reasons I'm able to accomplish as much as I do accomplish is because I've engineered my day, the beginning of my day particularly, so that it's productive. And then bonus number 3, the beginner's guide to task management. This is where the rubber meets the road. If you can't manage your tasks and translate your goals into daily tasks, you're not going to be successful. And I tell you in that bonus everything I know about the process. Now, we do offer an ironclad money-back guarantee, and here's what it says. My Best Year Ever course comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you purchase this course today and don't agree it's worth every penny I said it was, just send me an email to michael@michaelhyatt.com. I'll promptly refund your money. No questions asked, no hassle. You've got my word on it. So again, the price is just one easy payment of $197 or $497, depending on whether you want to go it alone or get the additional coaching from me. And here's the bonus I promised you, to set yourself up for the best year ever. I think, Stu, correct me if I'm wrong, the link is going to actually should be there on their dashboard.
Yes, that's right. They'll be able to see that right on the page. We're going to push that through so everybody will be able to see that as well.
So that's a PDF that you can download.
Yep.
So that's the course.
Yeah.
And why I'm so excited about it.
Well, and not just you're excited about it, there's a lot of people that are excited about it. We have had nearly 5,000 people registered just this year.
I know, I'm so excited.
So it's unbelievable. And here's the thing that I love about it. It's a community of people supporting each other on having their best year ever.
Yep.
I mean, who wouldn't want to be a part of such a positive, supportive community like that? And as you mentioned, the Facebook group for the VIPs, that thing is like on fire. You know, it is crazy to see how people are making progress and supporting one another. It's a great community.
And so inspiring. And all these questions that people have asked, you know, all those are getting asked inside the Facebook group, and people are giving brilliant answers to one another. It's just what happens when you crowdsource goal setting, which I love.
Yeah, and there have been some questions that have come through regarding the course, so I certainly want to ask you about that. One particular person, Greg here, asked, can you explain the difference between the two versions of the course? I tend to fall off the wagon mid-year. Which option is best for someone like me? So that was Greg who asked that question.
Well, absolutely the VIP edition, because that's going to give you the monthly videos from me. It's going to give you the quarterly calls, so where we can do the kind of the tune-up, and you get a chance to ask questions, get re-motivated, re-energized, refocused. And then the mid-year webinar, which we're going to do, which I'm really excited about, because we're going to talk about what do you do? What are your options when you get stuck in the messy middle?
This was one of the most popular things last year.
Yeah.
That, where you designed a presentation specifically to support people at the midway point of the year. Because that is a critical time, because you like to look at your goals both at this time of the year and at the midway point.
That's right.
And so it's a great presentation. Well, okay, great. So let's see here. Dawn asked, what makes your goal-setting course different from other similar programs?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is that this is really the accumulated experience that I've had over decades now and have really focused on honing. I mean, I'm improving it every year. This year alone, 2015, we completely reshot the course from 2014. Why? Because I continue to learn, and I'm doing that every year. So this is the best of the best. Somebody asked recently, well, what if I just go out and Google goal setting? Won't I get the same information? Well, maybe. You're going to get millions of hits. You're going to have to sift through it all. You're going to have to figure out what are the proven strategies for the ones that are just not so proven. And so this really has the proven strategies that work. We've got, as we said earlier, thousands of students that have gone through this, that have gotten great results, and that's the difference.
Yeah, I think my response to that would be, as somebody who's gone through it, is convenience. I mean, I know one of the things that I loved about it was the lessons are actually nice and short. So it's not filled with fluff.
Yep.
It is short, compact lessons that you actually get through. And that's what makes it so fulfilling, is that you actually are able to get the lesson, work through the questions, and come out the other end with tremendous clarity.
And you're going to come out with a plan.
Right.
Because if you just go out there on the web and research goal setting, it'll tell you what you ought to do. You get a lot of knowledge, but will you do it? You know, I guide you through the process step by step so that you come out the other end of the chute with a plan that you can work that really will create your best year ever if you work your plan.
Absolutely. And we've already had a whole bunch of people who have registered during this broadcast. So Joanne, I want to welcome you from Ontario. John from California. Joe from the Bay of Plenty. Terry from California. Alan from Texas. Bradley from Texas.
Fantastic.
Michael from Florida. Sarah from Washington. Lynn from Wisconsin. Goodness me. Victoria from California. Tamara from Ohio. Richard from Arizona. Crystal from Arizona, Dwayne from Utah, Janice from Pennsylvania, Nancy from Michigan, Theo from North Carolina, Aaron from South Carolina. The list goes on. This is amazing. So congratulations to all of you.
Welcome.
Some other questions that I have is, how long does it take to go through the course?
Yeah, it really takes between, I would say about 45 minutes a day. You know, some people that are really fast will get through it in 30 minutes a day. But again, over a 5-day period, so you can do day 1 on day 1, day 2 on day 2. Or we've had, I would say probably 40% of the people take one focus session like you and Amy did, where you go through everything in a 4 to 5 hour period.
Yeah, that's, from my experience, that's typically what it does. I mean, the lessons themselves are about 15 minutes, and then you spend about half an hour, 45 minutes working through the actual workbook. And the one thing that I will say to everybody is, take the time to actually go through and give the thinking necessary.
That's where the juice is.
That really is where the juice is. And the discussion. Just a little helpful tip. I loved doing this with my wife because the discussion afterwards sparked so many other ideas and concepts that we wanted to work into our plan. And so I would just encourage everybody to go through the process with somebody that you love, because it has been a very rewarding experience. And I know, in fact, you yourself are going through this with your wife and your brother-in-law, right?
Yeah, my brother-in-law comes and visits us every year, and so we decided this year we were going to go through it together. So we've been working through 1 unit a day, and we watch the video together. It's a little weird me watching me on the video, but we watch the video together, and then we work through the workbook on our own, and then we get back together, and then we discuss it. And I have had a hard time limiting those discussions because those guys want to talk about everything that they're discovering about themselves, and it's been a blast.
Yeah.
And I've learned some things, even about my wife. I've been married to her for almost 37 years, and I learned all kinds of things just in the last week as we went through this together.
That's very rewarding. And man, wouldn't you agree, the guy teaching this stuff, I mean, he knows what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let's see what other questions we've got. We got still lots of questions coming in here. This one from Shelley asked, do the materials apply to moms who don't work outside of the home?
Absolutely. Because this is something that your goals are about you. And what's important to you, and what do you want to achieve, and what would constitute your best year ever. My best year ever would look probably very different from your best year ever.
Right.
Or different from somebody who's a stay-at-home mom.
Yep.
But absolutely, we've had stay-at-home moms, homeschooling parents. We've had all kinds of people that you might not think would benefit from a goal-setting course, but absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that's a great question from Shelley, because I think the reality is you're covering all different facets of life. It's not just business or career. I mean, that's a part of somebody's life, but I mean, there are so many aspects. Health, there's relationships, the spiritual part of your life, the impact that you want to have. I mean, all of those come into play, and you can set goals around all of those elements.
Well, just for example, I have 9 goals for 2015. 6 of them have to do with my personal or relational life, and only 3 of them have to do with my career or my business.
Interesting. Let me dig a little deeper on that, because I'm curious just myself. Do you find that there's a good or bad balance between career-related goals and or personal-related goals?
Well, not so much, but I would say this. If you've got fewer than 7 goals, you're probably not addressing the major areas of your life. If you got more than 10, you're probably addressing too many things, that you can really focus on. But I would just work through the various categories of your life. Things like faith, family, fun, friends, finances, work, which doesn't start with an F. But those are some of the major categories that you need to think through, and just think like, well, if I could create something there that would be different, that would be my best year ever, what would that look like?
Do you mind sharing maybe one goal that you've set?
Yes, I will share one goal. One of my goals is to read 25 books this year.
Interesting. Now, why is that important to you?
You're drilling down, aren't you? That's good.
Just asking the question. I'm just giving the people what they want.
For me, it's important because I give out a lot of content. I'm constantly producing content. But if I'm not refilling the well's going to go dry. And so I've got to have a consistent intake of content if I'm going to produce anything that's going to be out in the world, if I'm going to be helpful. Plus, I know when I'm reading, I'm more interesting.
Right.
I've got stuff to talk about. I've always got a conversation starter when I'm in a crowd of people that I don't know. So, so that's one of my goals.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, we've got lots more people signing up for the course. So I want to congratulate all of those people who are coming in off of the broadcast. Fran from Tennessee, Gabrielle from Florida, Letha from Washington, Jackie from Washington, Emmy from Hawaii, Amy from Florida, Natalie from Ontario, Susan from California, Jim from Pennsylvania, Jeanette from Kansas, Terry from Kentucky, Susan from California. We got Gail from Alabama, Marilyn from Tennessee, Dort from San Diego, Raymond from Arizona, Janet from Texas.
Wow.
We got lots of people jumping on, which is awesome. So I want to congratulate all of you. I also want to encourage you, if you've got questions about the course, certainly submit those in the comments below. We'll be happy to help answer those. We've got about 5 minutes before we begin to wind down here, Michael. For people who are considering the course and are on the fence right now, what would you say to them at this point?
I'd say this is your year. You don't have any guarantee that you're going to have the next year or the next year after that. What you've got is this time that's before you. And I would just encourage you, don't settle. Why make this an average year or a repeat of a year you've already lived when you could make it your best year ever? And the only thing standing in your way, I'm just being honest because it's happened to me too, is you. You're stating the intention, your willingness to play, your willingness to engage and really create a different and a better future. You're going to be happier. People are going to be better helped when you do that. And I just think of all the change. In fact, one of my goals, I shared this with Stu earlier, but my goal is to get 1 million people to go through the course. Because I think what would happen if 1 million people who are unleashed on the world, committing to have their best year ever, I think that would qualitatively improve everything on the planet.
Absolutely. It'd be an amazing impact in so many regards. Just the positivity and the happiness of people accomplishing and making their year the best year ever. Yeah,
absolutely. And so, it's a decision away. It's that simple. And I would just ask you, make that decision this year. Whether you use my course or not, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that you make this decision, set the intention, and really pursue it. There are people that are counting on you that you don't even know. Not just yourself, but your family members, people at work, people that you know in your community. They really are counting on the best version of you to show up. Things get better, things get different, things improve when that happens. And I would just encourage you to take this as a stewardship and do it.
Well, I am thrilled about today. Thank you so much for pouring into the audience. I want to thank all of you for joining us here. We've had just a huge influx of people that have jumped on board. Again, more names: Matt from Illinois, Clark from Washington, Tamara from California, Lori from, I'm not sure where that one is, Lori, sorry, Colin from Queensland, Catherine from Michigan, CJ from California, Cynthia from Minnesota, Carlene from Connecticut, Kim from Tennessee, Donald from Missouri, Rick from California, Raymond from Arizona, Diane from Arizona, Anil from California, Sandra from Texas, Suzanne from Oregon, Nancy from California, Matt from, I think it's Missouri, Sterling from California. Welcome to all of you. You are going to thoroughly enjoy 5 days to your best year ever. It is a phenomenal course, and I say that as somebody who has gone through it with my wife for the second year in a row. It is just a very fulfilling experience when you get clear about what it is that you want, you create a plan for going about it and accomplishing it, and you do it with the ones that really matter most. It's about creating that time for you and creating your best year ever, whatever that means to you, whether it's in your health, whether it's in your career and your finances, whether it's in your spiritual life, whatever area needs that help and that focus, you can give it to yourself with 5 days to your best year ever. I encourage you to go register by going to bestyearever.me/register. You should also see the buttons on this particular page that will take you directly there as well. And register before January 8th. The course registration will be closed after that point, so you definitely want to get yourself registered. And I would do it sooner than later because you get a jump start on being able to create your best year ever. With that, I want to thank you. I want to thank our team behind the scenes who have done a fantastic job. Thank you so much to everybody who allowed us to be able to do this for the first time ever. This is our first time we've ever done a broadcast like this, and I want to thank you for your time here this afternoon. It's been a great day. Go make 2015 your best year ever. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.